What's up, everyone? Today I'm interviewing Alfred Goff, the creator of the show Wednesday Addams. So before we deep dive into Wednesday, what do you do as a showrunner?
Well, a showrunner is a position on a television show, and basically you're kind of in charge of everything. The as they say, the buck stops with the showrunner, and I do that with my partner Miles Miller. So we're responsible for first and foremost the scripts, and then the casting, and then hiring the department heads and the directors. And you're also responsible to stay on budget, which isn't always fun. And and then you also have, in some instances, you have the final cut on the show. So you like it runs by you, but you have notes from everybody. In the case of Wednesday, we work with Tim Burton. So on the episodes that Tim directs, Tim has final cut, but we're very much in sync with everything, and it's a very collaborative process. So, but yeah, the showrunner is the person they're like the director in television, a director in features and a showrunner in TV are similar.
Was this always what you wanted to do, or was there like a sort of change of mind where you're like, I want to be a showrunner, writer, and this stuff?
I knew I always wanted to be in show business, and I came out to Hollywood. I went to film school at USC, and it was really to get into movies. And then when we got to film school, and I thought I was going to be a producer, not a writer, my partner Miles and I teamed up to write a script for Class, which we ended up selling. It never got made, but we sold it to New Line. And that's how we became writers. And then television came a few years after that. And again, it was something that we kind of fell into, but we really liked. And that was a time when TV and feature writers were very separate things. So the fact that we did both was something that most screenwriters didn't do. But, it obviously turned out to be a good move, as nowadays, everybody's doing television or doing both.
One thing I didn't realize until you just said it was that you and Miles were friends before Wednesday.
Yeah, we've been friends for 30 years.
Wow.
And worked together for that long. I know.
So next question, what made you think of the show?
Well, I guess it was about 4 or 5 years ago. We had just finished our previous 2 shows. We had a show called Into the Badlands and another one called The Shannara Chronicles. And we were kind of looking for our next TV idea. And we were kind of looking, is there an interesting or iconic character that nobody's really done anything with? And so we sort of came across Wednesday, that was always our favorite character in the Addams Family. And, the idea of, if we did her, made her a teenager rather than a kid, because usually in the movies and the cartoon, she's 10, 11, 12 years old. And we wanted to make her a teenager, and then the idea of putting her in high school, but we didn't want to put her in just normal high school because we figured that would be, it's kind of like the first 5 minutes of the show where she puts the piranhas in the pool. Like she would just kind of burn through that pretty quickly. So then we came up with the idea of, putting her in boarding school so we could get her away from the family, but put her in a new situation. And then in keeping with kind of the tone of the Addamses, we came up with Nevermore and the idea that, it's a school for outcasts. And even in a school of outcasts, she's like the most outcastiest.
This is going great so far. Were you always a longtime fan of the Addams Family before you created Wednesday?
I don't know if I could say I was a longtime fan. I enjoyed the movies, which came out, again, nearly 30 years ago. And I always liked the characters, and I always thought the cartoons were funny, because the Addams Family started out as panels in a magazine called The New Yorker in the 1930s and 40s and 50s. And they were kind of a kind of play on what was considered then the normal American family. So then they had these people who were completely the opposite of that. So it was kind of a comment about kind of what the quote unquote normal American family looked like at the time. But I think why the Addams Family has endured is because they're a family of oddballs, but they all love each other and they all accept each other for who they are, which is why I think it's still popular today as it was, 60, 70 years ago.
If it's not popular, I mean, it's like in the top 5 most watched shows on Netflix. So if that doesn't say something, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you expect it to be in the top 5 shows on Netflix?
No, I mean, I don't think you could ever expect that. We all felt the show was really good. We're really proud of the show, and we would hope that it would do well and maybe find, kind of that YA audience, something, there's another show on Netflix called The Umbrella Academy. We thought, if we did that kind of numbers for Netflix, that the show would be a success and we get a second season. So when it kind of became this massive hit, I mean, we were all pleasantly surprised, but it is a surprise. You never expect that.
Yeah, and like, what was there that moment of like, this is a masterpiece? Like once you saw it hit top 5 and all that.
I don't know if I'd ever call anything I did a masterpiece, but the fact that it really connected with people of all ages, and what Netflix told us too was it was a show that people watch together. They call it co-viewing, so it's like a show like you would watch with your parents, or families would watch together. So that was really gratifying as well, that it's a show that could sort of bring people together in a world where everybody's usually on their own screen.
That I like the idea of that. It's a bringing together show, because like I'm normally not a fan of horror, but this was like horror in a way where it's like it was horror, but not like real horror, where it's like
right.
Where you're so scared you can't sleep at night. That's why I love it. It's like the perfect mix for viewers.
I agree with that. I think you're right. It has some elements of horror, but they're not too scary. They're kind of like PG-13, like more scares than it's not gory or anything like that. And I think it's mixed with humor as well, which I think helps.
So what does a typical workday look like for Wednesday, like on the set?
On the set, well, we shoot over in Europe. So the work days there, unlike in North America, are 10-hour days. So it's a much more civilized day. Mm-hmm. The actors usually show up a couple hours before because they've got to do hair and makeup and get ready. You usually start shooting around 8 o'clock in the morning, and you shoot through until 6. And in Europe, they call it French hours. I'm not quite sure where that name came from, but you don't take a lunch break. You sort of eat lunch as you go. So that way, in America, you have a 12-hour workday, but they take an hour for lunch. But the problem is, I mean, it's nice to have a break in the middle of the day, but the problem is you have lunch and then you kind of have to start up again after lunch, which takes time. So I think with a 10-hour day, you get more momentum once the work is started. And it's just the system you adjust to, but it's definitely more, it's more civilized would be the word that I would use, as opposed to, North America, where you can sometimes those hours can go to 14, 16 hours. So, we'll meet with the director and the actors beforehand just to go through the scenes to see if they have any questions or thoughts. They always get the scripts in advance. So if they have any notes, we've gotten those already, but there might be a thing or two on the day where a line doesn't make sense or they can't, you just want to make any sort of minor adjustments so that once you hit the set, everybody's shooting, like the questions are answered and everybody's off to the races. So it's kind of a normal day on set.
And then we'll get into, were you part of the casting process?
Yes. Yeah. As a showrunner, you're involved in all of it. So yeah, we hire casting directors and they, kind of cast a wide net for all the characters and then bring you the best ones. And then you watch their tapes. And then if you like the audition tape, then you bring the actor in. In this case, we did it all on Zoom because it was still during kind of COVID. You meet with the actor and you have them read the scene and you kind of evaluate them that way before you make a final casting choice.
I heard from Jenna Ora that she showed up with like bloody makeup on her face or something?
Yes. So when we first met Jenna, she was shooting a movie in there's a movie called X, and she was shooting it in New Zealand. It was a horror movie, and she had been up all night, like running through the woods, and had blood on her and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny. I mean, she was fantastic. I mean, we knew in that first meeting, even though she'd been up all night and probably hadn't slept, and still had some of the makeup on, that she was kind of the perfect Wednesday for us.
So you didn't go through anyone else besides her? Or
Oh, no, we went through a very, very wide. We saw hundreds, and the casting director probably saw thousands of people, right? But once we got to Jenna, we kind of knew that was the right one. And she had been on Netflix had sent us kind of a short list of young actresses they liked, who they thought would be good, and Jenna was on that list. But we saw a bunch of people, because you want to see as many as you can to know that, you found the right one. And it's such a specific role that if you cast the wrong Wednesday, your show was not going to work.
If my notes here are correct, that you use a person to play Thing?
We did. We cast Thing as an actor, and he was a magician from Romania, because we shot the show in Romania. And so he was somebody who did, what do they call it? Close-up magic, where they do a lot of, card tricks and things like that. So he had a very dexterous hand, and could express personality, which is what you want to do if your character is literally only a hand. So we had him on set, and what he would do is he'd wear a green suit, except for the hand. And then we'd have makeup, and we had the prosthetic kind of stump. Mm-hmm. And so he was on set the whole time, so that, Jenna, who had most of the scenes with Thing, but even the other actors, there was somebody to play off of, and they could react to, which was great.
Yeah. I was wondering, why not CGI? Because both seem pretty as expensive, to hire an actor or do CGI, but CGI just
CGI is actually more expensive to do that. And the problem is then the actors aren't playing to anything. So it's always better to have, even if your character's a hand, is to have that person, the hand, in the scene so that you can react to it, so it feels real. Because I think otherwise the CG hand you wouldn't be able to convey that personality. And by the way, there are some scenes and things in the show where Thing is fully CG, but I would say 95% of the time it's Victor, who is the name of the actor. It's him on set.
One of my favorite characters is Enid. So what made you put a colorful person into the show, since Wednesday seems very dark? And I love the style alter egos. You have the dark character as the roommate, and then you have the colorful character. So walk me through that decision.
Well, you kind of just stated it. It's because Wednesday was so kind of black and white and dark. We thought, who would be the polar opposite roommate? You know what I mean? If Wednesday, and it's Enid. So, and we thought that gives you a lot of fun scenes. It gives you conflict between the two girls. And then also it their relationship, through the course of the season, Wednesday goes from somebody who can't accept a hug to hugging Enid in the last episode. Mm-hmm. And I think, it's also really a show about female friendship, and, they're friends, and their conflict isn't a boy. And a lot of television shows, it's usually a boy that's between the two girls. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted the show to be about, that female friendship. So that's a core relationship for us. But yeah, we wanted them to be polar opposites. That was the idea.
The actors you also cast are very similar to themselves in real life, since watching a bunch of hearing a bunch of podcasts and whatever on YouTube before doing this interview. It's they seem very like themselves. It's Jenna had this sort of dark-ish thing to her. Emma Myers was really upbeat and happy. They really just seem like themselves.
I think a lot of times, especially in a TV show, you kind of cast the actors, and they do fit the roles. And then because you unlike a movie where you watch somebody for 90 minutes in a movie theater, a television show you're watching over the course of a season and hopefully a series, multiple seasons. And so I think a lot of times you gravitate towards actors who kind of fit those roles and feel like they're not faking it. Sometimes, by the way, you have very good actors who are nothing like their parts. And we've had shows and movies like that too, where they're also brilliant. But I think in this one, a lot of times the actors bring that, they bring their personality to the character as well. And I think you sort of cast to that. So I think that's, I know that, for instance, Hunter, who plays Tyler, is not an evil, schizophrenic, Hyde, but that's the acting part. But he is a lovely guy. So
yeah, it's like his voice really seems like when he's the coffee shop clerk, like he really acts like the coffee shop clerk. I think he gives off that vibe. Yeah. Do you think anyone could get in the show?
I would say, and there will be, there's always sort of new roles. It's a school, so there'll be, new people coming in and stuff like that. So I think if that person has an agent or knows how to get to the Netflix casting people and they can sort of put themselves on tape, I think there's certainly a path to doing it. I think nowadays, streamers and things are certainly aware of kind of YouTubers and influencers and stuff like that. So I think there's probably in it. And again, as you know, it just depends on, is this person a good actor and are they right for the role? Depends on how far they could get in the process. But I don't think it's impossible,
Okay. Because like Victor got on and he's pretty normal. He's just some magician from Romania.
Exactly right. We were looking for a very specific type of person for that role, which was frankly a magician, because we knew they had the, and specifically a closed, what they call an up close magic, with card tricks and things like that. So yeah, if the role's right, you don't necessarily have to be a quote unquote traditional actor to get it.
Can you walk me through some like the writing process? Because it's like, I figured there are a lot of notes on the page, like for how the character's supposed to talk. And like, there's a lot of thinking that goes into that.
Yes. And that's the thing that took the longest. I think it took us about a year to write all the scripts for the season. And, everything you see, a lot of times I think people have the misnomer that the writers only write the dialogue, which is not true. You write everything. So every shot that you see is written in the script. So that's, and obviously a director comes in and brings their artistry and their kind of, visual style to it, but it's all on the page and then they have to interpret it. You know what I mean? So that's something, and the writing process was a year, and we had a writer's room, which is when you hire a group of writers to come help you figure out what the season is. We had already written the first episode, and we had what's called a series Bible. So we knew where it was going. We knew how it ended the first season. We knew all the characters. This is the school. So, but then you have to kind of figure out what each episode is and how the mystery lays out. Like we knew the who and the who done it, but we just had to get there and made sure there were enough misdirects and surprises along the way so that as an audience you were engaged in the mystery.
One of the big misdirects that I thought was, I totally suspected Wednesday's therapist, and then when she went to confront her, I was like, yeah, I called it. Like something just seemed off. But then that turn of events, I was like, what? I did not have a new suspect.
Yeah.
I had her as a suspect for a while, but then when she wasn't it, I was like, oh my God.
Good. Yeah, it's very hard, with a mystery. You want to, because people watch so many of them and read them, and I think people are sophisticated when they're watching a story. So it's fun when you can still kind of surprise people or make misdirect them. That's really the trick with what we call a closed mystery.
The sets are amazing. Just have to say, like, Jericho seems to be like a 1990s, 2000s vibe. but they have 21st century technology. Like, is that purposeful? That seems like to be a little bit of an older town, but with new technology.
Well, yeah, and we built that entire town in Romania. Like that whole
Oh
town
wow.
was, yeah. But it's like a lot of towns. They're not built in the 21st century. They were built, 100, 200, and then buildings were added onto it. So we definitely wanted the show to feel a little classic and a little timeless, but it was still set close to our world, right? Like I think
Yeah.
this world is kind of a heightened version of our world. So we still wanted, while Wednesday doesn't have any technology, obviously her friends do. So there's some cell phones and some computers and not a lot, but there's some. So yeah, that was a very conscious choice to it's our world, but not to kind of overplay that stuff.
Do you know how the sets were constructed at all? Like put up and all that?
Oh, I do. I was there the whole time. So they were, we have a production designer. His name is Mark Scruton. And Mark designed the sets with Tim Burton. And then what Romania allowed us to do was, because we had a very big studio and a back lot, is we could build. So the entire town of Jericho is built. The quad is built. That's a set.
The only thing I know is not a set. I know Nevermore was a little bit edited, but isn't that like a real castle or something?
Yeah. Yes, that's a place up in the mountains of Romania. They're called the Carpathian Mountains. There we found that villa, and there's some shots that are absolutely the villa. Like I think there's an episode 2 where they're painting the canoes out front,
Yeah.
and you see the school. Like that we shot there. The car forecourt, where the cars pull in, and then the Adamses leave at the end of 5, and that's all real. And then we added some CG elements to it, like the towers and everything that were there. And to be honest with you, when you see the wide shot, we took the Carpathian Mountains out of it because they have the mountains that don't look nothing like New England. So that's new. And then the interiors, the principal's office. Mm-hmm. And that, kind of when you walk out and those stairs where Wednesday comes down at the dance and that hallway where they're in, that was a building in Bucharest. Bucharest is the capital of Romania. So a lot of the interiors of the school we shot in a couple what are called villas in Bucharest. So, yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. I mean, I know there's a lot that went into it, but that is way more than I thought. Leading off of the theme of visual effects, how much of it is real versus CGI?
I don't know percentages. I would say we tried to shoot things as practically and real as possible, but then there are things that, there are visual effects you recognize. Obviously the hide is a visual effect, right? But then there are other things where you're taking things out of shots or like I said in the Nevermore stuff, or putting in some backgrounds, where they don't exist. So I think we wanted to be as practical as possible and then just use the visual effects to kind of augment and add to it rather than lean on it heavily.
Did you have any put on visual effects sets or final cut?
Yes. Yeah. We were involved through the whole process, and Tim would approve the sets and we'd approve the sets, and we'd all watch the episodes and all give notes, and then once they were locked, we would which is when an episode is done, you lock it, and that way visual effects and music and everybody can do their thing. But then even all that, we would have weekly meetings where you'd see how the visual effects shots were coming along and you'd sign off on them. So yeah, you're involved. As a showrunner, you're involved all the way through the process from the beginning to the end. Is
there any scene that you can tell us about that did not get used, but it was a good scene that could have been in?
What's funny is we actually didn't shoot because the budget and the schedule were so tight. There were scenes in the script that we removed, but we never shot a scene and didn't use it. We pretty much used everything we shot is in the show. There's not like, we have, 5 scenes that are in deleted scenes that we left out. There really aren't. So, and a lot of the stuff that we cut in the script stage. We didn't cut at the production stage.
Got it. So I know Jenna Ortega did some of her own stunts, but I also know she had a stunt devil.
Yes, she did. But she learned fencing. She learned like the canoeing, for the Po Cup. She learned how to play the cello. So she did, as many of the stunts. You can do as much as an actor is allowed to do. At a certain point, there's insurance, and safety concerns, so that you don't want an actor. So you bring in the stunt double. But and she had a very good stunt double who did a fantastic job. And I think stunt people are they're kind of unsung heroes a lot of times in film and television shows, especially when you're doing a show like this that has sort of an action component to it.
Moving on to my favorite part of this, friends. So since I know there's a lot of things that came out of this, so I'm sure you've heard of the song "Bloody Mary" by Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
And I know that's highly associated. Do you have any clue why? I mean, I get the song.
That's something that completely happened. So when the dance came out, because the song in the show is a song called "Goo Goo Muck" by a group called the Cramps, who were, your father and I know who the Cramps are. You guys wouldn't. But "Bloody Mary," the Lady Gaga song, was something that happened, I think, on TikTok, and it just kind of took off, and to the point where Lady Gaga herself, did the dance and posted. So, that's one of those things, like it went viral and happened online, and it's completely from the fan base. It had nothing to do with us or Netflix or anything. I think we were all just like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy.
One of my other favorite sections are the Easter eggs, since I saw a lot of little things. So first Easter egg, anything funny or interesting that happened on set?
Yeah, there are a bunch of Easter eggs in the show. Like, the school is called Nevermore because that's from Edgar Allan Poe poem.
Yeah, honestly, that's so funny, since one of my questions here is following the same theme. The school is called Nevermore, as in Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. The Raven says Nevermore. Then they also have a statue of Edgar Allan Poe. So
yeah,
a bunch of those connections.
Exactly. So there's that. And then in terms of the Addams Easter eggs, obviously we put in the
snap,
the double snaps as a way to get into the Nightshades library.
Yeah.
And then another one was when Gomez is in jail in episode 5, his prison number on his suit is actually Charles Adams's birthday.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's another one. And then what you can't see, I don't think you ever get a good shot. So in the weather vane in the coffee shop, along the back wall, all of the weather vanes were basically all from Tim Burton movies. So there's like an Edward Scissorhands weather vane, and there's a Sleepy Hollow weather vane, and there's a Big Fish weather vane. You can't really see them. It's so, but that's something that was also on the wall in the coffee shop.
And this question I've been waiting for a long time, continuing off the theme of Easter eggs. So after she snaps twice and walks down the stairs into the basement, I'm almost positive I see a painting of Alexander Hamilton in the background. I'm almost positive.
There's pictures of a lot of old. I don't know if any of them are specifically Alexander Hamilton. I think some of them they look kind of old timey that way because the show takes place, it's set in Vermont and the school's been around for hundreds of years. So I'm not sure. I mean, it feels like if Alexander Hamilton would have been an outcast. I mean, but I don't know if there's a specific picture of him on the wall.
Okay. And then what's your favorite part of the show?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I have a lot of favorites. I really I love the Wednesday dance because Jenna came up with that, and it's just so unique and fun. I really love. Well, I think some of my favorite dramatic moments are when Thing gets stabbed because nobody's expecting that to happen. and then when Uncle Fester, brings him back. I love the Wednesday Enid hug at the end. I think that's a really good moment. I love I think the first scene in the therapist office, it always makes me laugh. When Wednesday, then she has the thing and then she sneaks out and goes down the drain pipe. I like that a lot. And I also love I love the stuff in Pilgrim World too, because that just, that was something that was always very funny in the script. And that script was written by a writer named Kayla Alpert, and she, Mistress Arlene, who was kind of the docent there, who was in charge of the kids, like that actress did such a good job. She was so funny. It was kind of like, oh, it's exactly how I thought it was going to be. So, and even better. So I think those are probably some of my highlights from this season.
So I know one thing about season 2, but now we're going to get into any teasers you can tell us. The one teaser I know is that there's a new character from the Addams Family coming in.
That's true. Yes. That's all I can tell you.
Okay.
I can't give you any other spoilers, unfortunately.
Okay. Then do you know when you're going into production?
Well, we're still figuring that out because of the strikes. The writer's strike just ended about a month ago, and the actors are still on strike. So I think the actor strike has to settle before we really figure out what our production dates are. So
okay, then I assume the air date is unknown.
The air date is unknown.
And now, here's my sort of crazy, interesting part that I'm excited for. So in the most asked questions about Wednesday, and the most asked question about Wednesday is, why is Wednesday so popular?
It's a very good question. And I think what it is, my answer is, I think it's because she is a young person who tells the truth and speaks their mind in a world where a lot of people don't like to do that. I think she's also someone who, even though it's a very un-Wednesday thing to do, I think she always sticks up for the underdog. You know what I mean? Whether it's her brother at the beginning or whether it's Eugene. So I think she has an innate sense to kind of defend people who are defenseless, because she doesn't like to see that. You know what I mean? She's happy to torture people, but she doesn't like to see, people who don't deserve it be tortured. Yeah. I think, if you look at Wednesday, the people that she always goes up against are authority figures, whether it's the sheriff or the school principal or her therapist. It's people who have a certain level of power, and that she's always fighting against that. But I think she's somebody who, speaks her mind. And also, I think weirdly, because she doesn't embrace technology, I think there is a little wish fulfillment among young people that they wish they could probably put their phones down or not care what people thought about them online and stuff, which she doesn't. So I think there's something sort of aspirational about Wednesday too.
Yeah. And then this is the part that I will bleep out if needed. So I'm going to pitch an idea for a episode.
Okay.
And the idea is that Wednesday is at Nevermore, and then there's a rival school, which I currently have put down as Laurelwood Academy.
Oh, okay.
And is like, I asked ChatGPT some ideas, and then it like first it did some bad ideas, and then it went to good ideas.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah. And then it's like a long rivalry, and then they compete in like some game every year. If you want to know more, call me. That's all I have in my notes.
I will. Yeah. The Netflix legal department will be in touch. That's good though. That's good. I like that.
Al, thanks for talking to me. Can't wait to see what happens in season 2.
Excellent. Thanks, man. Thank you for watching.
Everyone, like and subscribe.